sports? Do you like beer? Do you love sports and beer? Then you're exactly where you need to be. This is the Huebs, Views, and Brews show on 1252 Sports Chicago. Cheers.
And welcome on into my basement. Long overdue, the very first podcast that I'm doing. Thanks to the guys over at 1252 Sports Chicago, Fat Mike helping me out. He came to me and said, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" And I said, like Saturday and Sunday's not enough of me talking sports, right? But I convinced Mike and the guys at 1252 that, yeah, I'd like to talk sports, but I'd also like to talk a little bit of beer. And today we're going to do that, and we're always going to do that. I've got one here from Skeleton Key, and I'm going to pour it because one thing I can do here on the podcast that I can't really do on the radio is drink beers while I'm doing the show. Some people may say it actually might be a better show if I drink beers. We'll see how the next hour goes because we're going to talk sports. We're going to talk beer. We're going to talk about a lot of things throughout the course of the show here on 1252 Huebs, Views, and Brews. And I thought it was appropriate because I don't always agree with people, and people don't always agree with me. So I figured it'd be a perfect time for me to at least mention the things that I want to talk about. And sometimes on the radio, of course, right when the show starts, somebody calls me on the phone. So it's things that I wanted to talk about during the course of a show. And I figured that's why I'm doing the show solo. There'll be times we've got guests. We've got Eric Schmidt from Orange Brew Bottle Shop coming up around 7:45. And throughout the shows, we're going to talk to sports people, and we're going to talk to brewers and owners of bottle shops and people in the beer industry, because those are things I like. I have passions. Oh, and by the way, if you ever get a chance to go up to the Wisconsin Dells, you got to go to the Showboat Saloon. My favorite place up there. Ask for Jesse, tell him Fred sent you, and he'll take care of you. Okay. The restrictions are a little bit more laxed up there, but now that people are getting their shots and becoming vaccinated, it's a little bit safer to go to some of the bars. And when you're up there, you want to go to the Showboat Saloon right there in the downtown Dells area. A great, great time. They got live music all the time. And Tuesday, half price wings. You can't beat it. I'll tell you a quick story. I was up there one time. Up there for the baseball all-star game about 4 years ago. And so I go in there, and it's half price wings, and they had these glasses, these 17-ounce glasses of Leinenkugels for $3. I said, this is a good deal, and you keep the glass. Okay, how do you beat that? You know how you beat that? Jake and Dick Leinenkugel were there that night. So after the third Leinenkugel, I went stumbling over to Jake and Dick Leinenkugel, said hi, said I love your beers, at least the 3 I've had today and the 4th I'm about to get, walked back to the resort, Meadowbrook Resort in the Wisconsin Dells, walked back to the resort with a plastic bag carrying 4 of these glasses. So these are the perfect glasses for the cans of beer that I drink. This one's Blow Up the Moon from Skeleton Key. And so this is what I end up doing a lot. I've got 3 games on TV right now. Who does a podcast? Who does their debut podcast when there's games going on? I'm the guy. So I got the Cubs on one TV. I got the Blackhawks on the other. And I've got the White Sox on another. Sorry, Bulls. No TV for you. But then again, the reason I have no TV for you, you lose to the worst team in the NBA last night. So that wasn't good. So I'm going to give you a couple days to figure it all out, okay? But I wanted to do a podcast for a long time. I have a couple passions along with other things, but 2 of my big passions, sports and beer. So I told about the beer. Sports, most of you know me. Most of you have been listening. Most of you just know me from other people. We've met over the years, but just quickly, for those who don't know, I started working at Sports Phone in 1977. Now, you people out there that don't know what touch-tone phones are, or, we used to have a thing, and you can also see some of the guys on the 1252 Sports Chicago group, David Schuster, Les Grobstein, they started their podcast last night, and it's up right now. You can grab it on Spotify and a lot of other places. But I worked at Sports Phone. We did 59-second recorded message programs with just sports results. From 1977 to 1990, I was there. I went over to the Score in 1992, started 2 months after the station started. I was there until 2008, and I worked mornings with Mike Murphy for 5 years, worked mornings with Mike North for 4 years, and then I had to stop working at the Score because they decided they didn't want to pay me anymore. So I went to work at ESPN 1000 in 2010, and I've been there ever since. And I'm working just weekends now, so it gives me a perfect time during the week to drink beer and watch one of the other things that I'm going to get a chance to talk about here on the podcast, and that's soccer. Okay. I'm going to talk about Manchester United and talk about Bayern Munich and talk about the Chicago Fire. Chicago Fire opened their season, a home game at Soldier Field. They were supposed to play there last year, then COVID took over. I had season tickets. First time I ever had season tickets for a sporting event of my own was last year. And then COVID comes around. So I have a lot of money. I have a lot of credit with the Chicago Fire. So I'm going to be going to the game on Saturday, a 7:30 start against the New England Revolution. Excited about that. So we'll talk a lot more about soccer. The other thing, people say, how did you get into soccer? And I have to tell you, back in high school, could not stand the sport. I did go to the state championship game, didn't play. I was going to Morton East High School, and Morton East had a really good team. They had two tremendous players. Alex Mahavlich, whose son Georgi Mahavlich was playing for the Chicago Fire. He's now playing for Montreal. And also Miro Reis, who unfortunately was going to play in Germany and was killed on the Autobahn. But two really good soccer players. They finished second in the state to Harrison High back in the day. So taking a bus from Cicero and Morton East down to Illinois State and watching the game, not bad. But I never watched soccer after that until 1990 when the World Cup was being played in Italy. And I gave it a chance. I sat down. The games were being shown tape delayed on TBS, which most people watch now for the NBA. So TBS did the games. They explained the games. They explained the rules. Mick Luckhurst, the former kicker for the Falcons, was the color commentator. I sat there for the duration of the World Cup, watched all the games, became a big soccer fan, and then just threw myself into it. Started reading material, started watching whatever I could find. And in 1994, when the World Cup came to the United States, I knew the backup players from Cameroon. I knew everybody. And I've been a big fan ever since. The Chicago Fire started in 1998, and then I had an opportunity to do Chicago Fire play-by-play. In 2007, I did 2 games. The second game I ever did of play-by-play in soccer was the Chicago Fire against David Beckham and the LA Galaxy. The Fire winning in the 91st minute of play to clinch a playoff spot. And then I did soccer in 2008 and 2009. So now, big soccer fan. The podcast is going to allow me to talk a little bit about soccer, not too much, just enough, so some of the soccer fans can have a place to go when they're looking for some soccer talk. And we'll do that. I'll have some soccer guests on, but I'll also have baseball guests. We'll have baseball writers. I'm hoping to get some of the people from some of the baseball podcasts on here on this podcast on Huebs, Views, and Brews. And we'll do that also. And one of the things I wanted to mention, too, about the beer, and I'm not going to talk a whole lot about Miller Lite or Bud Light or any of the other things. Or back in the day, I was a big Stroh's drinker and could pound the Stroh's as well as anybody else back there. My buddy Bob used to work for Miller Lite, so we used to always have Miller Lite kegs for parties and things like that. Then I became a big Guinness drinker, and I still enjoy Guinness. My refrigerator is full of Guinness. It's always full of Guinness. It seems like no matter how much I drink, I always have Guinness in my refrigerator. So anyway, then craft beers started slowly but surely, and I would try to sample what other people were making. I would go to Arizona and on vacation, I would seek out breweries. Anytime I went out of town, I would seek out a brewery. And over the last 4 or 5 years, the proliferation of craft beer in the Chicago area has been crazy. I live in Downers Grove right now. There, within a mile and a half of me, and I may miss one, is Alter Brewing, Goldfinger Brewing, Black Horizon Brewing, You also have Miskatonic Brewing, Skeleton Key Brewing. And you go a little bit further, and you have Imperial Oak Brewing, and Imperial Oak just opened another place in Brookfield. And then you have Noon Whistle, who's in Naperville and Villa Park. You have more brewing. They're all over the place. Hopvine in Aurora. So many great breweries. You go out to the Lockport area, and you have Nick and Ivy, and across the street is Lock and Mule, which is run by Tangled Root. So if you're a craft beer fan, there's stuff everywhere. Every single week, there's more stuff coming out, and it's great. You have a great opportunity to try stuff, sample stuff. I don't drink coffee. Last night, I mistakenly had grabbed a Hop Butcher that has coffee and toffee. I was hoping it would have more toffee than coffee. It didn't. And I did something I almost never do. I poured out half a beer. I drank half, even though I don't like coffee, but poured out the other half. And then had to have another Hop Butcher just to drown out the taste of the coffee. But anyway, we're also going to talk sports. And when you're in a city like Chicago, where you see my White Sox stuff all over the place, I have the Sox Miller sign behind me. I have the world champion jersey behind me in a chair. I have my White Sox shirt on. I have more White Sox apparel than probably some of the players have. And I've been a White Sox fan since I remember. My first game was when I was 8 years old. 1965, the White Sox and Gary Peters going against the Twins and Mudcat Grant, and the White Sox got shut out. I think it was 7-0. And that was the start of my, I guess you could be a long-suffering White Sox fan also, can't you? So we'll talk some White Sox, we'll talk some Cubs, we'll talk Bears. Bears draft is coming up. The NFL draft is coming up in just a couple weeks on April 29th. So we'll have a lot to discuss. And then also the Blackhawks and the Bulls. And as I mentioned, the Chicago Fire and things like that. I gave something out last Monday night. Was the NCAA championship game. And a group of friends that I watched the championship game with at my friend's house, Tom Kelly, I said, listen, if you guys are gamblers, you want to bet on the Texas Rangers tomorrow night because Dane Dunning is pitching for the Texas Rangers. This was Tuesday. And I said, Dane Dunning is the guy that I wish the White Sox kept and traded Dylan Cease. They didn't. They traded Dane Dunning. Dylan Cease is still a member of the White Sox. He's not pitching bad. He's not pitching the way I think that Dane Dunning will pitch. So I'm a little concerned. Dane Dunning is pitching again tonight, which is Monday night. So check on Tuesday and see how Dane Dunning does. I'll keep an eye on him. I forgot to make a wager on him, but I was all excited for the show tonight. So if you want to, you can always jump in with comments or conversations, and throughout the course of the week, you can also get in touch with me. We'll talk about things each and every Monday that you bring up, things you may be interested in. Let's hit the White Sox, because right now, you couldn't wait for baseball. People could not wait to go back to the ballparks. Last week, you had Wrigley Field. Hey, Tim. Last week, you had Wrigley Field opening up. This week, you have Guaranteed Rate Field opening up. 20%. There's like 8,000 people on the south side. There were 8,000 on the north side. People are getting a chance to go to baseball games again. And that's very, very cool. And right now, there's two sub 500 teams in Chicago. You've got the White Sox at 4-5. You have the Cubs at 4-5. I quickly penciled down the standings before you started. In the National League Central, Cincinnati's on top, 6-3. They lost their first game, won 6 in a row, and now dropped 2 in a row. Milwaukee, who the Cubs are playing right now, 5-4. St. Louis 5-4. The Cubs are 4-5, and Pittsburgh is 3-6. Some of those wins coming against the Cubs. In the American League, Cleveland's 5-3. They have pitching, but it always seems to get hurt. Kansas City's 4-3. Minnesota 5-4. The White Sox are 4-5, and Detroit is 3-6. So here in Chicago, we have two 4-5 teams. And I've been saying, and I say it all the time, every single game in baseball is important. So many people say, oh, there's 162 games. Every game doesn't matter. It does. How many times during the course of a baseball season near the end of the year do you say, hey, we're only 1 game out of first. We're only 2 games out of first. We're 3 games out of a playoff spot. That means you could have made those up. You could have not lost that game in April. You could have came back and held on to a game in the first or second week of the season. The White Sox are 4-5. The Sox have blown some games. The Cubs have not hit. And I know that's not a new thing for the Cubs. The Cubs have not hit for 3 years, 18, 19, 20, or 17, 18, 19. They have struggled ever since they won the World Series in 2016. The White Sox yesterday went 1 for 15 with runners in scoring position. 1 for 15. That is brutal. Absolutely brutal. You need to get runners on. They had the bases loaded in the second inning with 1 out, could not score. Third inning, man on third, 1 out, could not score. You can't do that. Now, your bullpen has lost some games. Yesterday, on Sunday, at Guaranteed Rate Field, Liam Hendriks gives up a home run that ties the game. White Sox lose then in the 10th inning by a final of 5-4. Okay, you can't. That's going to happen. Relievers are going to give up home runs. I'm not sure if you know, but on Monday afternoon, Liam Hendriks did the old Joe Boo from Major League. He brought sage around the entire clubhouse and was trying to get rid of the evil spirits. And hey, anything that works. Pitchers are some of the flakier people. So anything that works. And if it works for the White Sox and their bullpen, that's great. Garrett Crochet throws a ball to the plate that, I don't know, a 2 or 3 year old could have made a better toss. He throws it into the ground. Now, I've never been a fan of outfielders throwing the ball and bouncing it into the home plate. Everyone says, oh, it's easier for the catcher to catch if it has a bounce. I disagree. Throw it on the fly. It gets there quicker. So Garrett Crochet bounces one in. Zach Collins can't grab it. The White Sox lose yesterday. So it's going to be a process. But there are a couple things in the White Sox that are very, very encouraging. Besides the fact that Garrett Crochet struggled fielding the ball, watching Garrett Crochet and Michael Kopech come in from the bullpen, how fun is that for baseball fans? Obviously White Sox fans, but baseball fans. Look at it. On the south side, you have a right-hander and a left-hander coming out of the bullpen. Eventually, they'll probably both be starters. They're coming out of the bullpen throwing 100 miles an hour. Chicago hasn't had that in the past. They haven't had that kind of pitching in the bullpen. They have not had that. Now it's awesome seeing that. And I'm enthused and encouraged by their bullpen. It's going to be okay. It's not going to be a bad bullpen. Bummer didn't throw great. He also has not gotten help from the White Sox defense, who've given up 7 or 8 unearned runs in the first 9 games of the season. That's brutal. Adam Eaton has 3 errors in right field. I can't wait for Adam Engel to come back. I always said if Adam Engel could hit 250 or 260, that's all he needs. Last year in the 60-game season, Adam Engel hit 295, and now he gets hurt in spring training, and he's not ready to come back yet. Good news for the White Sox. Tim Anderson's going to come back. He should be back in the lineup on Thursday. Now, I know there's people out there saying, oh, you're praising Tim Anderson now. You've been criticizing him. You know what I do with Tim Anderson? A couple of years ago, Tim Anderson led the league in hitting. And I only pointed out that he led the league in 2 categories. He led the league in hitting, and he led the league in errors. Now, Tim Anderson has worked hard to become a better fielder. And he's the kind of hitter that goes the opposite way. He's the kind of hitter that sprays the ball around. That's what you're looking for. A guy that can actually hit the ball to all fields. Not any of this, 3 ultimate or the 3 decisions, the strikeout, the walk, the home run. You want guys to put the ball in play. And I keep hearing people say, well, maybe you got to move the mound back. It's really difficult for these hitters to adjust. The pitchers are so good. They're throwing the ball so hard. Come on. Did they move the mound back when Nolan Ryan pitched? No. Did they move the mound back when J.R. Richard threw the ball? No. You know what they did? They learned to hit the ball. This sounds like a What's Up Fred's can, but it's not. They learned to hit the ball. You put the ball in play. That's what you're supposed to do. When you get 2 strikes, what does Anthony Rizzo do? He chokes up on the bat. You always see him choking up on the bat with 2 strikes. Anthony Rizzo shouldn't be complimented or praised for choking up on the bat with 2 strikes. Everybody in baseball should do it. It's really a simple thing to do. You want to put the bat on the ball. And it's amazing how so many people are striking out. And it's amazing that in Chicago, as I pull my stats out, in Chicago right now, there is one guy in Chicago that has 15 hits through the first 9 games. He's a 28-year-old rookie named Yermin Mercedes. He has 15 hits. He's hitting .536 thanks to an 8 for 8 in his first 2 games of his major league starting in the major leagues this year. His first 8 at bats this year, he had 8 hits. He has 15 hits, 2 homers, and 7 RBIs. He's a 28-year-old who didn't make it to the majors, maybe because he was striking out too much. What did he do? He figured out how to put the bat on the ball. If you look at some of his hits, he's got a double down the line. He's got a single over the second baseman's head. He hits the ball to left center. He's not swinging for the fences each and every time. He's making contact. That's what baseball's got to be. I am getting so tired of listening to Rob Manfred and all these other people talk about, well, we got to get the young people interested in baseball. The average age of the baseball fan was 55, and now it's 10 years later, it's 65. By the way, I'm 63. I'll be 64 in May. But I'm just saying, shortening the games, making games quicker, making more action in the game. If young people don't like baseball now, that's not going to change it. Putting a runner at second base in the 10th inning, you're trying to speed the game up. I know I heard Tony La Russa say that's a good thing because sometimes if a game goes too long in extra innings, it messes up our bullpen. Well, figure it out. Win the game in 10 innings then if you don't want your bullpen to get messed up. Win the game in 11. Win the game in 9. How is that? The 7-inning doubleheaders that they put in, not a fan of that either. The White Sox, after having the game rained out on Saturday, are going to play a doubleheader on May 14th. 2 games, 7-inning games. Not a thing that a baseball fan enjoys seeing. If you get a ticket for a doubleheader, you'd like to see 2 9-inning games, not 2 7-inning games. That's not what you're looking for. But we're trying to get the young people into the game. Oh, what are we going to do if the young people don't like the game? You know what? The young people like the NBA. The young people like the NFL. If they don't like baseball, they're not going to like it just for you making it a shorter game. Soccer's a 2-hour game. Soccer's a quicker game than hockey, basketball, baseball, football. And soccer, which was the sport of the 70s, is supposed to be the sport of the 80s, sport of the 90s, the sport of the 2000s, now the sport of the 2010s. And now we're in 2020. I don't know if the United States has grasped soccer and their love for soccer as of yet, but it's a long time coming. So even though it's a game that only takes 2 hours, it can't get any quicker. The youth of today, actually more youth like soccer than the old people because they didn't give it a chance. Just like me. I didn't give it a chance. I gave it a chance. I enjoyed the game. I learned about rivalries. I learned about the players. That's what I think some of the older folks should do. But, you know, we're busy drinking our beer and things like that. We got a lot more beer talk. Remember, Eric Schmidt from Orange Brew Bottle Shop is going to come up in about 20 minutes. Some other things I wanted to make sure I got to. Oh, by the way, your main Mercedes with 15 hits, that's 6 more hits than anybody else on either team, the Sox or the Cubs. So striking out is a problem the Cubs had. Remember in 2016 after the Cubs won the World Series? I know I'm a White Sox fan, but you had to respect what Theo did, the way they built the team, the way everybody came through, the way Schwarber came back, the way the Cubs said, we're going to draft players that we're going to buy pitching and acquire pitching. They acquired Hendricks. They acquired Jake Arrieta. They signed John Lester. They did what they needed to do. They made the trade to get Chapman because they said they needed a guy at the end of the bullpen. That one still hurts for Cub fans because Gleyber Torres is a pretty darn good player. And do you really think the Cubs wouldn't have won if they didn't get Chapman? I've had that discussion with many Cub fans a lot. And but you would hear White Sox fans in 2016 and 2017 saying, the Cubs are going to be just like the 85 Bears. They're going to win once and never get back there. Not necessarily fair because the Cubs did get to the playoffs 5 out of 6 years. And they just could not get over the hump. They could not hit. They've not been able to hit, and they are continuing to not hit. They are last in the major leagues in hitting. I know that the analytics say, well, averages aren't that important, really. Averages don't mean that much. On base percentage and everything else. But when you're hitting 136 as a team, that means you're pretty bad. And the Cubs are not hitting the ball. They've got to learn to hit. They were 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position yesterday. They lost Saturday and Sunday to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They were outscored 15-3 to one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. A team that's not trying to win, a team that has the lowest payroll in Major League Baseball. And the Cubs could not beat them. Now, After throwing good games, Zach Davies and Trevor Williams did not throw well in their second games. Kyle Hendricks had a bad opener and then very good in the second. Jake Arrieta, who Cub fans were probably happy that he came back. Jake Arrieta has thrown 2 good games. I'm looking at Arrieta right now, 2-0 with a 225 earned run average. He's given up 13 hits in 12 innings. Jake has done the job. That's nice to see. The question is, what's going to happen with the rest of this Cubs team as the season goes on? Because you have Baez, you have Bryant, you have Rizzo. What's going to happen? Who's going to be around? And I was listening to Waddle and Sylvie today. And by the way, I don't want to go any further without saying, welcome Sylvie back to the building. Sylvie, who had large B-cell lymphoma, was out. He is in remission. That's great. He didn't take a lot of time off the air. He did for his chemo treatments, and now he's back in the building. Today's his first day back in the building in more than a year. So welcome back to the building to Sylvie. It was great to hear him today. Great hearing the guys giving it to him, and that's nice to see. As a guy that also had large B-cell lymphoma, when Sylvie got it, he called me, and we talked about it and discussed it. I tell people I had the easy cancer. I was stage 1. They took my spleen out where the cancer was. I went through 6 treatments of chemo, and I've been in remission ever since April 17th of 2017. As a matter of fact, let's see, April 17th, the anniversary, the 4-year anniversary is coming up. That'll be fun. I'll have to tip an extra beer when we get to April 17th. All this talking, I don't have a whole lot of time to actually drink my beer, but that's okay. So Sox and Cubs we discussed, okay? Now, I could talk Bears, but Fat Mike, who's helping me with the show, he called the station the other day because we were saying, who do the Bears take with their first pick in the draft, number 20 overall? They've got quarterbacks, but I kind of like what the offensive line did at the end of the season last year, the last 5 games of the year. But then Mike grabbed his phone, who knows what he was doing at the time, grabbed his phone and called and said, they need offensive line. They got to get an offensive lineman. And he's probably right. They do need offensive linemen because the Bears are going to go into next season with Andy Dalton and Nick Foles. Just think about that. Those are the quarterbacks that the Bears are going into the season with next year. Andy Dalton and Nick Foles. Nick Foles showed that if there's any pressure at all, he can't do anything. He can't escape the pocket. And Andy Dalton is a guy, I feel bad for him because Chicago fans are giving it to him. It's not his fault. It's not his fault that he hasn't won a playoff game. Maybe it is, but it's, he gets teams to the playoffs. Let's see what he can do with this Bears team. But there's a lot of things to decide for the Bears brain trust. Every time I say brain trust in the Bears brain trust, inside I get the shakes. Because if Ryan Pace is the answer for this Bears team, then I'm not sure what the question is. Because Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, after the first good year, have not done what we expected them to do. Matt Nagy came in. We thought he was going to take this offense to the next step. It looked pretty good the first year with all the trick plays and everything else like that. But then after that, not so good. And Ryan Pace has struggled with his first-round draft picks. I was not as down on Mitchell Trubisky as everybody else. Don't turn me off just because I said that. I know there's a lot of people that could not stand Mitchell Trubisky. I just think that Mitch wasn't given the weapons. He wasn't given the offensive line. But, okay, you're all saying it right now. I know you're saying it. Mitch cannot read defenses. I understand that. Mitch can throw to the first guy in the read. He cannot read defenses. We've seen that. He can escape the rush. He's now in Buffalo. He probably won't get a chance to play much because Josh Allen's not going to get hurt very often. The Bears do shop for their quarterbacks at the Goodwill store. That's definite. So I was not as down on Mitch as everybody else was. But now they're going with Dalton and Foles. We'll see what happens. We also have heard over the last couple of weeks that Anthony Miller is being shopped. There's a lot of reasons you get shopped. Taking a swing at a guy in the playoffs when you know that you're down a receiver, probably not the good thing to do. And also, they couldn't keep him on the field. He's had injuries constantly. Allen Robinson's going to be back. He's probably not happy, but he's going to be back because he signed the franchise tag. Now he wanted more. He thought he was a 20 or $21 million receiver. He's not making that kind of money. He's getting about 18 million. Not bad to be disappointed with 18 million. But he probably also realized that the market for receivers wasn't out there. So he's going to get his money. He's going to play for the Bears. And I like what Allen Robinson does, except with 50-50 balls. If Allen Robinson could become a better receiver on 50-50 balls, the Bears would have had a better year last year. And hopefully, if Andy Dalton's throwing some 50-50 balls, you can see Allen Robinson go on up and get a few because he struggled. The Bears are going to get Tariq Cohen back this year. How are they going to use him? For a couple of years, my partner on the pregame shows, he wasn't there this year because of some back ailments and neck ailments, but Steve Mago McMichael has always said, Tariq Cohen is a guy make him a slot receiver, get him the ball and let him do his thing. It would be nice if the Bears, I won't even say brain trust again. It would be nice if the Bears offensive staff of coaches, which is like 10 deep, I think it is. They have a quarterback's coach and a quarterback quality control coach and a running back coach. And it's crazy. But if they can figure out a way to get the ball to Tariq Cohen and make him a special player and put him as part of the offense, and not a part that every time Tariq Cohen is in, he gets the ball, kind of like Cordero Patterson last year. Cordero Patterson in the backfield, he's getting the ball. Otherwise, they would have David Montgomery back there. And we finally saw that Matt Nagy decided to go to David Montgomery, or was it Bill Lazor giving the ball to David Montgomery? The offensive line looked better the last 5 or 6 games. Montgomery played well. It would be nice to see that happen this year for the Chicago Bears. They also made a decision, and they basically let Kyle Fuller go, and they couldn't keep Kyle Fuller because of money. The salary cap, because of COVID, because of all the NFL teams not making the money they're used to making, they had to let him go. They kept other people. Kyle Fuller's gone. He got picked up the same day he was released by his former coach, Vic Fangio, and he's going to be playing for the Denver Broncos. So now the Bears, after getting Jalen Johnson as a cornerback last year, now they have to go on out and get another cornerback. Do they draft a cornerback? Do they find someone somewhere else that's failed? It looks like that's what they're trying to do. Bring in a cornerback that has been sick, has been injured, has not played more than 6 games over the last couple of years. Played with the Lions last year and struggled a bit. So now he's there, but they're going to need a cornerback. They're going to need offensive line help, and eventually they will need a quarterback. Now, as you're looking at the picture, you can see Joe Montana. There's 2 Joe Montana pictures here, and there's a Jerry Rice photo right here. I'm a 49er guy, and people ask me, how'd you become a 49er fan living in Chicago? When I was younger, growing up in Cicero, I would watch Notre Dame football on Saturdays. And back in the day, when I was younger, in the early 70s, there wasn't college football on all day. You were lucky to get a couple of games each day, and Notre Dame was on all the time. So I had a chance to watch Notre Dame, had a chance to watch Joe Montana make all these amazing comebacks and things like that. Joe Cool, and then what he did at the Cotton Bowl and beating Texas and things like that. So I became a Joe Montana fan. He got drafted by the 49ers. I tell this story all the time. My mother and father got divorced when I was a senior in high school. My dad moved out to the Bay Area, and I was able to become a Niners fan and follow the Niners. And then Super Bowl 19, I was working for Sports Phone, had a chance to cover Marino and the Dolphins against Montana and the Niners at Stanford Stadium the year before the Bears go to the Super Bowl. So you know what happened. The Bears did not make it to the Super Bowl. The Niners were in their way, and the Dolphins were the team that ruined the Bears' undefeated season that year. But it was nice. That's how I became a Niners fan. And the Niners had some rough years too. But then again, a couple of years ago, they make it to the Super Bowl. They've had some opportunities. They had a good year or two with Colin Kaepernick. And then they have situations where they have Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, they're interesting with the draft coming up too. And I'm hoping to talk to a big 49ers fan in a couple of weeks, Josh Nelson, who's also part of the Sox Machine podcast. I've got him lined up for one coming up in a couple of weeks. He's a big Niners fan, and he's also a White Sox guy doing the White Sox Sox Machine podcast. So I'm eager to see what the Niners do as they moved up to number 3 in the draft. So the NFL draft is going to be fun. It always is. So offensive lineman, cornerback, wide receiver, Anthony Miller, what's going to happen there? He's being shopped. Kyle Fuller is gone. Bizarre with all the stuff that's going on right now in the NFL and with the Bears. Let's go to the Blackhawks and the Bulls. I'm hitting on all of them right now. And then slowly but surely, as we get guests on and from different sports, we'll talk a lot more baseball. We'll talk a lot more football and the draft coming up. And we'll also talk more sports phone people. I mentioned how Les Grobstein, David Schuster doing their own podcast here on 1252 Sports Chicago. But there's a lot of guys that I worked with at Sports Phone that you can still hear and see on radio and TV right now. Chris Bowden doing Hawks pre and post and between periods. Lou Canellis over on Fox. There's people everywhere that worked and started at Sports Phone. Dave Wills, who does the Tampa Bay Rays, a Sports Phone guy. Brian Wheeler, who did the Portland Trailblazers for years, a Sports Phone guy. So slowly but surely, I'm going to get some of these guys to come on, talk about our old days at Sports Phone and some of the things we used to do and how we used to get scores and call press tables and update scores every 10 and 15 minutes, every 5 minutes on Sundays. So it's been a long sports history, and it's amazing. It's taken me 63 years to do my first podcast. Again, thanks to the guys from 1252 Sports Chicago from my basement. That's the coolest part. I don't have to go anywhere. I'm done with this. I'll just pound another beer and enjoy. Speaking of, we will have more beer talk coming up in a couple minutes. But the Blackhawks made 4 trades, and none for name players, but they're getting some draft picks. They're going young, and we knew that before the season started. Who would have thought that the Hawk season would be as interesting as it has been this year after they struggled the first 4 games of the year with Tampa Bay and Florida, and then they also started the year without Kirby Dach and without Jonathan Toews. The season has become very, very interesting, and they right now are 2 points out of a playoff spot behind Nashville, a team they struggled with last week, which didn't help them at all. And we saw something over the weekend, which was great to see from Jeremy Colleton, who's going to be here for a while. The first 3 minutes and 13 seconds of the game against Columbus, the Blackhawks are down 2-0. This is a game they need to win. Columbus and Detroit, who the Blackhawks are playing later this week, they're 9-3 against these two teams this season so far. And you're making a playoff push. You got to win these games. So what happens? Jeremy Colleton calls a timeout. That's right, 3 minutes and 13 seconds into the game. I'm listening to Carmen and Yurko today over on ESPN 1000, and they said a coach has only 2 decisions at that point. He either pulls the goalie and says, sorry, the guys are playing like garbage, and I got to do something, or he calls a timeout. Colleton called the timeout, which is rare. You get 1 30-second timeout in the NHL. I mean, you have breaks between periods, you have line changes, you talk to the players then, but he called timeout, stood on the bench and yelled at his guys. He chewed them out, and the Blackhawks played better. Scored 2 goals before the first period was over, took a 4-2 lead in the contest before winning 4-3. So you think that's a good thing? They're in Columbus today. They're losing right now, but there's a lot to play for. So the Blackhawks season has been an interesting one. Very interesting and very fun. So that's cool too. So we'll get to that. We'll get to some Bears talk. And we'll do a lot of other things too. Some Bulls talk, because I really quickly want to mention the Bulls because it was disappointing last night when you lose to the worst team in the NBA. You lose to Minnesota. And Ricky Rubio was nailing threes. He had 5 threes. Karl Anthony Towns was playing well. Zach LaVine was okay. But the Bulls have already gotten rid of Wendell Carter, and they've gotten rid of Chandler Hutchison. In the offseason, will they move Kobe White, and will they move Lauri Markkanen? They apparently were trying to move Lauri Markkanen, and that didn't work. They were unable to do it. But I think moving Lauri Markkanen, he's not the guy you think he is. And it's funny when people say, oh, he goes to the basket hard. I used this description a couple of weeks ago. He goes to the basket like a 5'7" accountant. Now, nothing against accountants. That's fine. You make a great living, much better than the living I'm making. But as a 5'7" accountant, you're probably not going to the basket really hard. And that's the way Lauri Markkanen goes to the hole. He just is not what we thought he was going to be. He's never developed. And unless Billy Donovan thinks that they can get more out of Lauri Markkanen than Arturas Karnisovas and the general manager are going to have to do something and move him. I like Kobe White. I think Kobe White's been confused. They bring him in here, want him to be a point guard. He's a scoring guard. They had Zach LaVine. What are they going to do? I thought you play positionless basketball in the NBA. You can do those things, play positionless basketball. So the move for Vucevic was very, very nice. It was good to see. And it's going to take a while for him to adjust. And when he does adjust, and when Zach LaVine and the rest of the players figure out how to play with him and how to get the most out of him, the team's going to be better. I like Daniel Tice. He's a tough guy. I like tough guys in the NBA, especially nowadays in the NBA. You need to be a little bit tougher. You need to put your body on people. That's what Billy Donovan said after the game last night when they weren't doing that against Minnesota. You're right. The Swedish, the Finnish, they don't scare anyone, Alan. And I was hoping Lauri Markkanen would be better. Yeah, he's got a nice three. Every once in a while, he'll have a great night where he hits 3, 4, 5 threes. But he needs to do that more often if he's going to stay there, because he can't do a lot of other things. So anyway, the Bulls are making a playoff push. The Blackhawks are making a playoff push. You don't really expect the Bears to be in the playoffs, but stranger things have happened. Teams have gone from worst to first in the NFL. They do it about 4 or 5 different teams a year can do it, going worst to first. And because there's only 4 teams in each division, it's always interesting to see how they do. So we'll have a lot more to discuss, a lot more to talk about leading up to the NFL draft, which comes up on April 29th and the 30th and the 31st. So there's a lot of time to discuss it. We'll have a lot more. And like I said, we'll talk a lot more with some football guests. Let me take another sip of my beverage before I mention that there are not 1, not 2, but 4 releases, 4 beer releases coming up this week. And let's see here. Wednesday, Black Horizon has a can release for Blueberry Cake Crusher. It's a dessert beer. Blueberry, tastes a cheesecakey. It's a kind of a pastry kind of dessert beer. There is also the Maibach from my guys over at Goldfinger Brewing. I love a Maibach. And they make beers over there. They make lagers. The Maibach comes out 4 o'clock on Wednesday. There's a good chance I'll be there at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. Thursday, Noon Whistle has their Gummy Apocalypse coming out. I've got 1 or 2 in the fridge from last year, so I'm going to have to get a few more. And if you're a fan of Miskatonic, if you're in the Downers Grove, Darien area, and if you ever had Storm Shake is it's an IPA, but it's so good. And it's coming back. The return of Storm Shake is coming up on Friday. So if you have an opportunity, and it happens all the time. And Thursdays are a big day because Hop Butcher comes out. And on Thursdays, there are beer people going all over the place looking to try and grab Hop Butcher beer. And it's a perfect lead-in to our guest coming up right now, because if you want Hop Butcher, there's always a good place to go grab a Hop Butcher. And that's going to Orange Brew Bottle Shop. It's in Downers Grove. It's a half block off of Main Street, just west of Main Street, just south of the tracks in downtown Downers Grove. Check it out. Orange Brew Bottle Shop. And Thursdays are always a big day because my guy, Eric Schmidt, is a guy that owns the place, and he's always there. He seems like he's always there each and every time I walk in at noon. There was one day I got there before he did. So can we bring Eric up? There he is. Hey, Eric, what's going on?
How you doing, Fred?
I'm doing well. You remember that day? I was helping the guys unload trucks, I think, before you even got there that day.
Yeah, that was a fun day, as I recall. And let's be clear, I don't own the place. My wife owns it. I just work there.
Oh, there you go.
And she works me to the bone. That's why I'm there all the time.
You are there all the time. That's why when I first said I asked you to do this on a Monday night, I said, I don't know. I know Thursdays are your big days because Thursdays are Hop Butcher. You get a lot of beers. I came in last Thursday and the place was just jumping. Is it like that every day? I know Thursday's big, but is it like that all the time? Like right at when you open it, there's people waiting to get in?
I wish it were every day, but sure. Thursdays are the big day because of Hop Butcher. We do get a lot of other drops late Wednesday, early Thursday. So it's very active then. And right now with COVID and people working from home and not in offices, they're able to just come by at noon on Thursday and grab their beer.
Well, I was going to ask you because there's been times where I've come in and you're there, and as you're helping the people that are there, your entire counter and bar is full of black bags because of COVID. You all of a sudden you had to do something because it was very difficult with COVID and everything else. So you were having people order online, and they took advantage of it, didn't they?
They did, Fred. It was really cool. I mean, a lot of places had to do different things during COVID and try to adjust to things, and that was one of the ways we did it. A lot of other shops did the same thing.
Right.
We laugh. We're like, well, it would be good to get rid of this and not have to deal with all those bags on the bar, but it is so convenient. We don't have to worry about splitting drops and saving stuff for later in the day because it's pretty equal. Everybody's, for the most part, got access to a computer at noon and can grab it. And then, we think about it. And every time that we think about not doing it, we'll get that call from somebody that pulled up, wants the curbside delivery, and you go outside and it's somebody with two kids in a car seat and they would have never
Sure.
been able to come in and get it. So it's a great convenience factor for a lot of folks, and they seem to like it.
Well, as an old guy, when they order online, they also pay for it already. So I know I was there the other day, and a guy just walked in. You gave him his bag, he walks out. So it makes it real easy for you because everything's done. The payment and everything's done online, right?
Yeah, it's all done online. It's just, I mean, you see me when you're there at noon. It's a little stressful because, this is a little inside baseball. It's a little boring, but I mean, the inventory part of it is crazy. So making sure that we don't run out of beer that we're selling online and people are holding onto it in a line in the store can be a little stressful. But again, the convenience factor, and we're glad to at least play that role and be able to get more beer in more people's hands.
Well, and I was going to ask you that too, because with the proliferation and more breweries and opening up and things like that, that's good for you, but it's also busier for you because, as you said, with the inventory, you're getting more and more stuff in. How do you decide what you come in, or do they come to you? Do different breweries, different distribution places, do they say, here, we're getting this. Now, how much of this do you want? That's something you got to work on each and every week also, right?
Sure. It's a little bit of everything, a little bit of the above. So some we can reach out to. A lot of places now know us. We've been around for 2 years, so they'll reach out to us. The good thing for us and a lot of other shops is the singles, right? You can come in and buy one can or one bottle. You can make a mix pack. Fred, if I were in your shoes and didn't actually have a shop now, I don't know how I'd ever be able to drink all the beer I want, having to buy them 4 at a time. It'd be absolutely crazy. So I think putting ourselves in the consumer's shoes or our guest shoes and say, all right, let's make this easier for you to try everything you want. That's how we do it. And I wish I could tell you there's a science behind how we order. Again, the past year, things seem to change every week. So every time we think we figured something out, we realize we don't know anything.
Well, I asked you about that one of the first or second times I came in. Is it good for you to sell individual cans and have people make their own packs? Because I know a lot of other places don't do that, and they don't do it originally, and then they try to get it done. But what's the most difficult part of that? Because I know there's times where then in the back you'll have a lot of single cans.
Sure. You know what? We look at it from it's just the right thing to do. That was just the simplest thing for me to look at it. Is it a little bit more work? A little bit. But at the end of the day, it's worth it to us to be able to do the most we can to be able to let people make it as easy as they can to try different things. As you know, there's we'll get 60 different beers in some weeks, and it's like every brewery is doing a different beer every week, 2 beers every week. So it's impossible to keep up, it's a great time to be in craft beer and to enjoy everything that's out there, but it can get really expensive fast.
Yeah, no, it there's no doubt it can. And then the thing is, they come in and you don't ever have time to drink them all. My refrigerator, I have 4 refrigerators in the house. Every one of them has beer in it. And sometimes people go, I can't believe you held on to that for 12 months. Well, I had no choice. I had to get the other new stuff. And I'll buy 2 or 3 and I'll drink one, put one in the fridge, and I'll eventually say, hey, what do you know? All of a sudden I found something that I didn't know I had, and I go back and taste it. It tastes great. One of the things, and I'm sure you've been asked this before, but I'm trying to ask it a different way. When did you realize, or when did you decide you wanted to own a bottle shop?
Oh, I worked in bars in college. I managed bars. After I graduated, I got into the real world and did media, kind of like you did. So, you've got to be able to hustle a little bit. And that was that was my hustle, right? So I did. I worked in restaurants, I worked in bars, and so then gradually I got into a regular career for 15 plus years, and it was still always kind of in the back of my mind. And after 15 years in not for profit, doing executive work, and I still do the TV work on when there's things to happen, which there isn't right now. So it finally got to a point that we were comfortable enough. We had some money saved up, and it was just the right time to do it.
Yeah, because and how long were you open before COVID?
We were open about a year and a half before COVID.
Okay.
Not quite.
Okay. So that you had a little bit of a base, which was nice, because I know that you were always constantly trying to, and even I tell the story. It's been really nice because there were times where people could not come in and sit inside, but they could sit outside. And it's been nice because where you're located at in Downers Grove, people will be able to sit out there, which is nice because the weather's going to get warmer. They tell me maybe in the 50s for the next week or so, but it's going to be warmer. So when it's people are sitting outside, it makes it so nice. And then sitting inside too. But during COVID and in the winter, it was very difficult to have people come in and do anything. So it was just at that point, just the orders and people coming in to pick up beer. But you've seen over the last probably month, it's opened up a lot, and it's had to be a lot more busy and a lot more crowded the last month or so.
It is. We're still trying to be responsible with how we let folks in. A good example was the Illini games. So Orange and Brew, for anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah, I was going to bring those. I was going to bring those up in a minute.
There you go. So we got a lot of publicity with the alumni associations and the athletic department about being a game watch place. And that was a challenge when they were in the tournament because everybody wanted to come in and watch it. So we had to get creative, put TVs in the windows, do reservations inside because, I mean, could we have let as many people as we wanted in? Sure. Is that, the right thing to do, the responsible thing? We just decided it wasn't. So, that's how we kind of manage things. But it's, we have to give a big shout out to the Village of Downers Grove because they let us have that space outside. That's not a normal thing for the village, but they realize how tough it is on not only us, but all the other restaurants in downtown Downers. So they were able to come up with some creative ways to allow all of us to still be able to maximize people out there as long as the weather's good.
Right. And I was just going to ask you that too, because living in Downers right now, it's nice because I know that, there've been collaboration beers and there's been a lot of stuff going on with the restaurants and that in the area. And that's had to help because everybody seems to help each other, which is the way it should be, but it doesn't always work that way. But in Downers Grove, it seems like it's really been good.
Yeah, all the restaurants down there, I think we have a real good relationship with almost everybody there. So everybody works together. I'll give you a great example. It's craft beer related, right? You mentioned Goldfinger.
Yeah.
And I still remember when Tom opened last summer, right as COVID is crazy and trying to figure out how they're going to do things. And Todd from Cadence in Foxtail, he's one of the owners there. And then Sam at Pierce, and he's got Fuller House in Hinsdale. So they and I were at their grand, or like the quiet opening, right? The industry opening. And they asked Tom at Goldfinger, how many people do you have working tomorrow? And Tom's like, well, my wife and me, and we've got one other person. And the two of them were like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, there's no way your first public day on a Friday at noon, 3 people are going to be handling it. So they literally said, you know what? We're going to be here at noon tomorrow, and we're just going to be here to help. Whatever we see you need to have done, and they obviously have experience. They know what they're doing. We're going to do it. And we're going to make sure that your opening is great because first impressions are everything. That's a great example of how everything works in downtown Downers. Everybody down there has been great.
Well, and it reminded me of, it was about a month or so, I think, before Goldfinger opened. And you had a night at your place where Tom brought over a couple of the smaller kegs, and they were gone quickly. I got there at like 5:30, and there was a line of about 30 people outside already. And they were all socially distanced, but they were all in line to try and taste some of the Goldfinger lagers.
Yeah, that was the other one. We laughed because he said he had 3 beers at the time, and we said we'll put all 3 on, like as a preview event for Downers Grove. And I asked for one of them to be a half barrel, the bigger keg. And he's like, let's just go with the small 6 barrel. So I think it started at 5. At 5:52, I walked outside and I said, hey, Tom, your beer is tapped out.
Yeah.
And he said, which one? And I said, all of them. So he had to go. He was like, should I get more? And I'm like, well, there's still people in line looking for your beer. So it's up to you. So yeah, he ran back to the brewery and went and got some more beer. But it's growing pains for all of us to try to figure out how to do things. And again, even when you thought you knew how to run a business like that, COVID threw everything up in the air.
Okay, I got another beer question for you, but let me ask you about Illinois, because I see that Frazier had a chance. He could have come back for another year. Is that true?
Yeah. Everybody can come back. This year was basically a wash for every college athlete.
So Frazier decided he's going to enter the draft. Io is going to. Miller is going to go somewhere else. It is going to be tough for them to bounce back into next year with all these guys leaving.
Let's just say I don't believe I've seen any top 30 lists that have the Illini in them right now.
Okay. After the really good year, and you know what happens every once in a while. I want to ask you about football, but
Thank you.
Well, basketball. I mean, they made it as interesting as possible for all the Illini, the alums. But the loss to Loyola, it was so shocking because it was so weird because Loyola beats them, and then Loyola plays awful in their next game, and that was the part that was so depressing. It was. A lot of people said, well, if Illinois was going to lose, it was okay. They lost to Loyola. Not Illinois grads didn't, but everybody else said it was okay. But then when Loyola lost, it's like, okay, come on. It would have been nice to see Illinois because they were better. They probably could have went further.
Yeah, you know what? I'm one of the rare Illini grads that said I agree with you. If they were going to lose to anybody, Loyola was okay. And we've talked about this before. I've covered some of those kids, the Illinois, the Chicago area kids. So they're all good kids. They played a phenomenal game. They play a great offense and an amazing defense.
Yeah.
So, I was just bummed that they couldn't advance a little further because they had the talent and the schemes to do so. But yeah, you know how it goes. You can have a letdown after such a big win.
Yeah. And then speaking of letdown, the championship game was brutal. Watching that game was just absolutely awful. It was over in the first 8 minutes of the contest, and it was never in doubt anymore. Okay, one last question.
Such a good tournament too.
I know. One last question. It's a beer question. Oh, my brother's letting me know that the White Sox just hit a 3-run homer. That's cool. What is it about Blazed Orange? Oh, you can't see it that well. What is it about Blazed Orange that makes all beer drinkers go crazy? It's unbelievable. I mean, I was there the other day, and people were buying 3, 4 packs. It's like, come on. What is it about this beer that Hop Butcher makes that makes him just go crazy?
Well, I don't know. You're the one drinking it. You're going to have to tell us what it is. I'll tell you from my standpoint. It's one of the original, I would say, milkshake IPAs, right?
Yeah.
It's got the orange, it's got the lactose, it's got some sweetness, but balanced really well with the hops that they use. It's just so well done for the style and scarcity, right? So they're only going to make it a couple times, maybe twice a year. I think they're doing it right now. So people will stock up as soon as they see it. And the good thing is they've been releasing a lot more of that particular beer. They realize what the demand is. So yeah, you're right. We had people that were we put no limits on that one, and people were buying 8 cans, 12 cans, 16 cans last week. And it lasted a full day. We were able to pretty much take care of everybody that wanted it that day. But it is just such a good example of that kind of new style of beer that you and I never would have thought of back when we were drinking beer when we were 21.
No, what were you drinking back then? Because I was drinking Stroh's and Miller Lite.
Yeah, Miller Lite, yeah.
Okay.
And Keystone Light, that was my other one.
Well, that was because you could buy a lot of that for very little, right?
Yeah.
You didn't drink any red, white, and blue, did you?
No, not where we were. Some did. I mean, I didn't turn it down if it was free.
Sure. No, I understand. So you have a lot of things. You always have something coming up. We mentioned how you had the thing with Goldfinger, and you always have different things with different breweries and different beer releases. You got something coming up soon?
We do. It's been a little harder to do those these days, especially with the unpredictability with the weather. But now that things are starting to open a little bit, I'm feeling more confident about doing these things. So yes, we have one this Thursday, which would be the 15th, right?
Yeah. Tax
so
day. Before they changed it.
Yeah. So it's a Revolution tap takeover, but the key to that one, or the biggie, is the Cuvée de Grace, or the Cuvée de Grace. Am I saying it right? I'm a few credits short of my French degree, but it's their Cuvée beer with several barrel aged blends. It's different every year. They'll release it at the brew pub on Friday, but we'll have it the day before as a preview on Thursday. So we'll have that beer on tap, as well as I stashed away a 10-year beer from last year, which is another barrel-aged delicious beer.
Yeah, one of
and
my
I brought away,
friends.
and we have to be, we've got Mega Hero for the hazy fans, we've got Anti-Hero for the hoppy fans, and we'll have Cross of Gold for the people that like beer-flavored beer, which is all good.
Yeah, and it's one of my friends, Heather, actually, her husband saved me a 10-year, and I drank it one night, and I just wanted to call everybody and say, "Oh my God, this is so good!" But there was no one to call. I just sat and drank the whole thing, and it was enjoyable. Yeah, it was very, very good. One more thing, and I forgot I mentioned you're a bottle shop, and you mentioned it too. You've got beers on tap too, and how do you decide each and every week what you're going to have?
Well, we have 8 draft lines, so we always try to have a variety. I've always got a lager or Pilsner type easy drinking line for somebody that may be learning about craft beer or just wants to they want to be able to have a couple in one sitting. There's always going to be a hazy or two on. Right now, we'll always have a stout or two, and then we'll play with some of the lines. It depends. We've got barrel aged beers we can put on, fruit beers, sours. We've got a really good relationship with Afterthought, so if you like sours, we'll put those on once in a while. But it's a little bit of everything. We try to, we want to have some of the rare, fun things, but at the same time, not everybody that comes in the door is looking for that. They want to be able to have something enjoyable that they can have multiple in one sitting. So we're always going to have something like that too.
Okay, and one last thing. Of all the ones that are out there right now, and not brand, but styles, you have one style that you go to. A lot of people they pigeonhole everything into, oh, you like IPAs, you're like this, but there's so many different versions. What is it, the one thing that you like?
I am a promiscuous drinker, Fred. So it depends on the season and it depends what's happening. So if you ask me that when it's cold out, I'm going to tell you a stout, probably a coffee stout. Right now the weather's getting warmer, so I like a good hoppy IPA. And honestly, I'm really getting into the lagers are making their way back, right? The lagers, the Hellas's, the Viennas. I credit Goldfinger with a little bit of that, making a lot more awareness of them because they're so good with their social media. So a lot of breweries they're making them, and maybe not more, but people are seeking them out more, especially in our shop. So I would say if you had to pin me down right now, those are the styles. I had a Roaring Table Hellas yesterday that was absolutely phenomenal, and that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, the Hellas are really good, and they're coming out, and I know the My Box coming out from Goldfinger on Wednesday, and I'm pretty sure I'll be there at 4:00 to grab one right away. Eric, appreciate it. I'll be seeing you in a week or so, if not sooner. So appreciate you.
Fred.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me. Great talking.
No problem. Eric Schmidt from Orange Brew. You can check him out. Get to the place. It's an awesome place, and they got so much stuff, so many things going on, so many great beers, and there are so many being made right now. There's a place called Midwest Coast, which is actually located near the United Center, and their beers come in 12-ounce cans. But I bought like 2 or 3 of them. Tremendous beer. And he's correct about the lagers. And there's a lot of people that are going back to, they're not drinking the Miller lagers or stuff like that, but they're drinking the craft beer lagers that are remade, the Pilsners and the My Box and things like that. And they're all great beers. And if you're a beer fan, and if you ever see me at one of these places, come on up and talk to me. There's so many beer places I just pop in, and every once in a while someone comes up and go, "Hey, I recognize that voice." Yeah, that's usually me. I do have a tendency to stop on Saturdays or Sundays after I work on the radio, and it's fun. When there's a new beer release, and I mentioned earlier, there's new beer releases coming up this week at Noon Whistle, at Black Horizon, at Goldfinger, and also at Miskatonic. So you'll probably see me at one, if not more, of those places. Each and every week here on the podcasts, I'm going to do a segment that I do on the radio. And it's a segment that started when I was with Waddle and Sylvie doing sports updates during their show. And they would always hear me griping and bitching about something. So Jeff Meller put together an open called What's Up Fred's Can. So we're going to do every week a What's Up Fred's Can. And it's pretty easy this week because if you're a baseball fan, you saw something that happened last night on the Sunday night game. The Philadelphia Phillies win the game on a sacrifice Let's go to the segment first.
Well, maybe it's just because you're ugly.
Ugly? You gotta be kidding me.
Time for What's Up Fred's Can on 1252 Sports Chicago.
So if you were watching the game last night, Alex Bone scores from third base on a sacrifice fly. It turns out to be the winning run for the Philadelphia Phillies. And they reviewed the play to see if the tag was made. There was a tag, but they say the tag was after the runner got to the plate. The problem was the runner never touched home plate. And if you've listened to me enough on the radio, I have said for at least 5 years that every league that does replay gets it wrong. It's hard for me to believe this, but the NHL does the best job of it. The NHL usually doesn't do the best job of anything, but Major League Baseball has 4 umpires a game. All they need to do is stick a 5th umpire upstairs in the press box, and he can be in front of a big screen TV. Heck, if you don't want an umpire, you can put Fat Mike or me in front of the TV. Pay us to watch the game. And when there's a controversial play or a close play and the umpire makes a call and it's wrong, we'll buzz down and tell the guy, hey, that was the wrong call. You got to correct it. Instead of, we're going to challenge. We got 20 seconds to challenge. Now, instead of 30, Tony La Russa messed that up in the first couple of days of the season, and the White Sox missed out on a play. You have a guy upstairs all the time watching the game like we're watching at home. How many times have you seen the very first replay and you can figure it out? And then for another 2 minutes, the umpires are standing there waiting for the high-tech facility in New York to decide what the call is going to be. So all you need to do, in the NFL too, just get an extra guy upstairs. Get another referee watching the game. You don't need a challenge flag. You don't need to not have something in the last 2 minutes. No, you don't. I ran out of challenges. I can't challenge that play. If the play is wrong, get it called correctly. We have instant replay. Have a guy upstairs, a referee in football, an umpire in baseball. He can make the call as he sees it. How many times? It's ridiculous. And it's happened for 4 or 5 or 6 years. And Rob Manfred, well, we don't have the right mechanics. We don't know if we can call balls or strikes yet. Well, the umpires certainly can't call balls or strikes. Instant replays there. Use it and get the plays called correctly. That would be nice. And that's what's up my can now, because I didn't see the game last night. I was doing other things. But when I saw the replays, I could not believe the guy didn't touch home plate. And they saw the replay. They said there wasn't enough evidence. For one guy, there wasn't enough evidence, the guy that made the call. Everybody else in the country that saw that the player did not touch home plate. It's frustrating. So frustrating. And the thing with the balls and strikes, before we go, the thing with the balls and strikes that bothers me the most is that the one thing people don't realize is that there are pitchers in baseball. I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, there are pitchers in baseball. Sometimes pitchers are a little loopy, okay? They're very, very sensitive. And if you get a pitch that's down the middle and it's called a ball, or it's in the strike zone, it's called a ball, it gets into the player's head. And now all of a sudden, they throw another ball, and now they're out of it. And next thing you know, they're out of the league because they couldn't control themselves just because of one bad umpire's call. Now, people say, well, it's the human error. And if I hear one more person say it's the human error, and human error is part of the game, human error is part of the game for the players, not the arbiters of the game. It's not human error if an official makes a wrong call. Human error is if Nick Madrigal throws to the wrong base. Human error is if a football player, steps out of bounds too early or something before he gets to the first down. That's human error, okay? Not when a play is called incorrectly. That can be corrected with the video that we have right now. So anyway, it was great catching up with Eric Schmidt from Orange Brew. And again, if you're looking for beer, any kind of beer, like he said, they've got a lot of lagers. They have a lot of other things. check it out. It's half block west of Main Street in downtown Downers Grove, right across from the train tracks on the south side. You never know. You may walk in there. I was there one day before COVID. I'm having a beer, and the guy says, "Hey, I know you. You're Fred." And we just started talking and started yapping. And that happens quite often. I unfortunately or fortunately have a voice that people recognize. I've been doing it for a long time. And this is great because this was the debut. And it's so nice to be with the guys at 1252. There's so many cool guys. You've got Alan and Angelo and Fat Mike, and now you got Les, and it's just great. And with David Schuster, great to have all these people together talking sports and me, sports and beer. And as the weeks go on, I'll have more football talk, more beer talk, and hopefully you guys can keep tuning in. And if you miss it, you can always find us on Spotify. You can find us on the YouTube channel. And if you follow me on Facebook, or you won't be able to avoid finding us. We'll be everywhere. So thanks a lot for jumping on in. Thanks for watching on the first episode of Huebs, Views, and Brews, as I get a chance to finally finish this one after it's still cold. What do you know? I think it's just the basement. Kind of chilly down here. So thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks to Fat Mike for all of his help. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks a lot.